Hello and welcome back to the Mojave, everybody. Welcome back to New Vegas, where today we're going to be taking a look at the 10mm SMG, and we're going to be talking about its pros and its cons, as well as all the strengths that come with it. So the 10mm SMG is probably going to be one of the first submachine guns that you find. You'll likely find the 9mm before this, but this might be like the second or third one that you do find out of all the submachine guns. You're going to find it probably towards the mid-game. Certain enemy types can have this, various raiders can have this, as well as the fiends can potentially have this, and you can buy this from quite a few different vendors. This is one of the few weapons that actually fires the 10mm round, which is a fairly common round, but there's not a whole lot of weapons that actually use it. It's just this one, the pistol, and the shoulder-mounted machine gun, and that's it. There's no other competition for this round. The 10mm SMG requires 50 guns in order to wield and 5 strength, so average guns, average strength, pretty normal for a submachine gun, nothing real crazy there. Guns builds are going to be able to use this no problem by the time you're hitting mid-game. You're probably going to have 50 guns or more, assuming you're going with a guns build or a hybrid build. The 10mm SMG does 19 damage per shot, which is decent for a submachine gun. It's not super high, but it's not super low either. This does 171 damage per second. Pretty high as you would expect from a submachine gun. The submachine guns in this game generally are really good at dealing damage per second. 10mm submachine gun is no exception to that. This one does 19 crit damage, same as its normal damage, pretty normal there. This one has a very low crit chance, like all the automatic weapons, or almost all the automatic weapons, at 0.08. So very low chance of actually hitting crits. Crits can be useful for any automatic weapon because that'll just buff up your DPS even higher, but it's not a huge deal if you're not hitting those crits consistently. This only costs 22 action points in VATS, so it's actually pretty good for a VATS build, surprisingly. That's always nice to see. This one has 2.2 spread, so fairly widespread. This isn't going to be very good at very long ranges. It's going to be best at close and medium range, kind of what you'd expect from a submachine gun. This one holds 30 rounds in it, which is perfectly fine for a submachine gun. You don't necessarily need more than that, but more rounds for an automatic weapon is always better, which this one can get an extended magazine. We'll talk about that once we get to the modded version of this. This one weighs 5 weight, so not super heavy, but also not super light. I guess it depends on what you're comparing it to. Heavier than most pistols, not as heavy as a lot of machine guns, so somewhere in the middle. And this one has 500 item health, which is also pretty good. Submachine guns and just full auto weapons in general can eat through the item health pretty fast, but 500 health gives you a lot of it, and this gun doesn't chew through ammo so fast that you're going to be breaking it really quick, as well as 10mm submachine guns aren't the most difficult thing to find. And once you have jury rigging, or if you have weapon repair kits, it's not going to be a big deal either. Then basically any submachine gun, or really any pistol, can be used just to fix up this, and that's pretty good. You can also get a couple 10mm submachine guns really early on if you'd like to. You could run to Vault 34, which does have some golden geckos in front of it, but so long as you can take out them, and you can take out the first few ghouls in there, you can get access to a couple submachine guns that are just sitting on shelves. Pick those up, and there you go. You could also get the vault armor while you're there. You don't even need to go all the way through the vault, although there is really good guns at the bottom of that, but it is kind of difficult to go down that far. Just running in and grabbing a submachine gun isn't super difficult, as well as I'm pretty sure that there's one in Boulder City. I think it's found in a bathtub or near a bathtub. Just wander around the city there. There's no enemies around, at least normally. If you make enemies, then there could be. But you could just walk into there, grab the submachine gun right away too, and have a pretty decent little submachine gun for the start. For the pros of the 10mm submachine gun, this one does have really high damage per second, like you would hope for a submachine gun, so that's always good. And it has pretty common ammo. 10mm may not be the easiest to find on like dead bodies and stuff, or on raiders. Sometimes you can find it because they might have this or a 10mm pistol. But most vendors tend to sell it. Even starting vendors can sell 10mm, and usually they sell quite a lot of it. You can usually buy a couple hundred rounds from them, similar to 9mm, so actually finding 10mm isn't such a big deal. The only real con to this weapon is that it's sort of rare to find early on. Like I said, there's a couple locations where you can just run to and grab it right away, but in the early game you might be needing to use like weapon repair kits or talk to people to get it fixed, and that's going to cost you a little bit. Later on it shouldn't be a problem at all, especially if you have jury rigging. Then any handgun can fix this and you're pretty much set then. Since this does fire the 10mm round, you do have a couple different ammos you can load into it. 10mm doesn't get that many different ammos though. It has the standard 10mm, which is just the regular 1x damage, no extra effect on it. You have the hollow point rounds, which give you 75% more damage, but it also gives the target 3 times the amount of armor. So it's really bad against armored targets, really good against flesh targets, so no armored enemies or very light armored enemies. Hollow points can be great. You just have to buy those though. The far better and easier one to get, in my opinion, is the jacketed hollow points. You have to get this from the perk hand loader, but this makes so you get 65% more damage rather than the 75% that the regular hollow points give, but you can convert regular bullets into these, and it gives the enemy double the amount of armor. Still not very good against medium and heavy armored enemies because they can tank through this. You don't do that much damage per shot, so Heavy armored enemies, it can be a little bit rough to use on, but medium armored enemies you can get away with, and light armored enemies you can absolutely get away with. And of course, non-armored enemies, it's incredibly strong to use these. There are a couple of perks that can kind of help with the 10mm submachine gun as well. Let's talk about them now. There's nothing that's super in particular for this. It's not like the 9mm submachine gun that had grunt. This one doesn't get a bonus from actually using grunt, which is kind of interesting. I figured it might, since you do see 10mm submachine guns, at least in like Fallout 3, being used by the military. But you know, different game, different part of the world, so grunt doesn't affect it. Running gun can be kind of useful for this one, just because it makes it more accurate when you're actually running. That's okay if you want to be using this at kind of medium range. Still not going to be great at long range. And you could also take the professional with this, since this is a one-handed gun. You do get extra crit chance with it, so that can be kind of, well, not necessarily extra crit chance, extra crit damage. So when you are hitting those kind of inconsistent crits, you can potentially get some more damage from it, which can be good. For an overall rating for the 10mm SMG, I think I'd put it up into B tier. It's pretty good. Pretty much all the submachine guns in this game are good, though. They can all work really well at most ranges and against most enemies, and usually the only thing that's kind of holding you back for using the submachine gun is the amount of ammo that you have. If you have a lot of ammo, no problem. If you don't have very much ammo, can be a problem. Let's talk about the modded version of the 10mm submachine gun, which you can also just make in the game, because this does change it up a little bit. The 10mm submachine gun gets access to 2 mods. These mods are the compensator and the extended magazine. The extended magazine is super straightforward. It just increases your magazine size from 30 to 40, so you get 10 more shots. That's good. Full auto weapons love a larger magazine size, and this comes at no detriment. So if you find an extended mag, fantastic. And then the compensator increases your accuracy. It actually increases it quite a bit. It goes from 2.2 spread to 1.2 spread. So it's actually one of the most accurate submachine guns then. It's still not super accurate by like rifle standards. It's not going to be way great at very long range. But at close and medium range, especially medium range, it's going to feel really, really consistent. This doesn't change the submachine gun dramatically, but it does help with it, and I would put the modded version also up into B tier, but much higher. Maybe even up into A tier. It could go up there. It's really good for just clearing up smaller things, and it can be really good for like picking off CAS doors, picking off all the submachine gun things that submachine guns love to pick off. There's also one unique version of the 10mm submachine gun that we need to talk about, and this one is a lot of people's favorite, or one of their favorite guns, one of their favorite like pistol type guns, funny enough, because you can't actually sneak this one in. This one is called Sleepy Time. Sleepy Time is a Gunrunner's Arsenal exclusive weapon, so you do need to have that DLC, as well as you do need to buy this from the Gunrunners, and it's going to cost you a pretty penny. Side note, this one probably should have been given to Mr. Holdout on the strip. I think that would have fit his store far better, but it's not. You just have to buy it from the Gunrunners, sadly. Missed opportunity there, Obsidian. Sleepy Time requires 50 guns and 5 strength, same as the regular 10mm. This one does 22 damage per shot, which is pretty good. 220 damage per second, very good, as you would kind of hope for a submachine gun. Has 22 crit damage, so same as regular damage. A much higher crit chance, but it's still pretty low at 0.1 times, so you at least have a little bit higher chance of critting. It's not super high, but a little bit better. Costs 22 action points, so it's still good in a VATS build. This one has better spread than the regular 10mm submachine gun at 1.7, but it is still more spread than the one with the compensator on it. So if you have the modded 10mm submachine gun, that one's going to be more accurate, but Sleepy Time is more accurate than at least the base 10mm. This one holds 40 rounds into it by default, so it has the extended mag already on it, weighs 5 weight, and has 500 item health just like the regular one. There is 2 unique things about Sleepy Time though. One is that this is a silent weapon because it has a suppressor already added onto it as well, which is pretty awesome. And 2, it is the only submachine gun that is actually an improved holdout weapon. So if you do have 50 sneak, you can sneak Sleepy Time into like casinos and any holdout areas, and it is a very, very strong weapon in those type of situations, because most enemies in those type of situations are not going to have the best weapons in the game. They're not going to have like high-powered shotguns, high-powered rifles and stuff. They're generally going to be carrying around like pistols or melee weapons. And you can sneak in a lot of really, really strong melee weapons, and there is some other really strong weapons you can sneak into, like the sawed-off shotgun. But Sleepy Time has one of the highest damage per second, and if you load this with the jacketed hollow points, or just with the regular hollow points, you're going to be shredding through just about anything in any of those areas, and it is very, very effective. It's probably one of the best ones to sneak into those areas. But those areas don't come up super often. And when they do, you could argue that maybe you wouldn't even need Sleepy Time for the area, depending on what you're doing there. Especially if you're doing kind of a pacifist run or just a high speech run. Sleepy Time I would put higher than the regular 10mm submachine gun. I'd probably put this up into A tier. I don't think I'd quite put it up into S tier because it still, in my opinion, kind of gets beat out by at least 2 of the other submachine guns in terms of damage per second. to where it's still really good, and I could see people arguing this to S tier. Like I said, this is people's favorite weapon. As a sneak-in weapon, it probably is an S tier sneak-in weapon, because there's just not a whole lot of competition for it. I mean, there's like this, the double barrel, and then basically it's like melee and unarmed weapons, and then some of the pistols, like a light shining in darkness and some other ones. But this is still a very, very good submachine gun, so I would totally understand people putting it up into S tier. It's really good. And that'll do it for the 10mm submachine gun. It's a pretty cool gun. Tell me your thoughts on it. Tell me what other weapons you'd like to see in this series too. We're going to be going through all of them in New Vegas. So thank you guys so very much for suggesting this one. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.